We seem to be online.
Are we cooking?
Well, I think so. Can you can you check in on
what?
On YouTube?
I'm on YouTube.
Yeah,
I am. And Jorman M. Pierce from Michael in Montreal, Quebec.
okay.
Andy Wickham, hello all. Yeah. Potter's there.
Oh, I was just panicking because I wasn't seeing any comments coming in, but I've just seen Wildflower coming in. Hello to you from South Germany, yeah. Warrior Steve, Southampton. Woo! It seems we have things working. Yeah.
Are we muted to the outside world, or are we
not? No. We are being heard.
So everybody can hear us.
Oh yes.
Well, hello everybody. It's a good job I wasn't swearing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to see because we are multicasting. We're going to. Where are we going? Let's turn that down a bit. We're going out to Facebook as well at the same time, and I've just seen a comment come in from Facebook. From Glasgow, in fact. So that's good. Yeah.
I'm actually going to do my best not to be distracted by chat on different screens because I'll just lose the plot. Michael is brilliant with tech. Me, not so much. Look, I use pencils.
Oh. Sue from California, Mark, hi there. Green Dragon Reprised from Clydesdale, Simon from Gosport, hi Janet, Susan Shewan from British Columbia. They're all over the place, Rupert.
You are all over the place, it's fantastic. Diana says the music's a bit repetitive. Hey, it's just the prelim minutes.
It's just the I like it.
Anonymous Facebook user, hello from Kew. I used to live in Kew. I grew up in Kew.
You did indeed, yeah. Have I forgotten anything?
Only time will tell. Yeah. Michael's only going to repeat this probably, but a lot of this is experimental this evening.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, now Nigel Sadler says the music's rather irritating. Hello, Dale. Nice to see you. Now, David, on the other hand, says groovy tunes. Well,
yeah, I like the groovy tunes.
Well, I'll be honest with you, folks. Here I have a pint of water to keep me going while we're on air. Meanwhile, I have a small beer before we kick off proceedings. So.
Anything else? Any other contraband you wish to declare?
No. After that, I plead the fifth.
And Dale says, good to see you.
That's very nice of you, Dale. Very nice. I hope the evening runs smoothly.
Oh no, I can guarantee that things will go wrong. I can absolutely 100%. I've got far too much stuff in front of me.
Lots of stuff.
And only so many fingers.
Yeah. It's quite funny actually that you had that view of what's in front of Michael with knobs and buttons and everything else. I don't have another camera to show you what's in front of me, but it is essentially it's essentially paper, pencils.
No, you definitely have the advantage. You definitely have the advantage. I will turn the music down just a touch, maybe. It's not meant to be. Just meant to keep us relaxed until. Also, guys, I mean, we've probably explained this before, but you know, this thing about having a countdown before the show begins. It's quite kind of best practicey thing for live long form shows like this, because fact of the matter is that most people, when on YouTube, when they see something come up in their feed that it's gone live, it's a good 18 minutes before. That's 18 minutes after we've gone live. That's the time when the most people come in. So having an early start like this with sort of fluff before we actually start the program is just a way of maximizing the number of people who get to watch the show from the beginning, rather than it being talking to. But it's good to. You are the good people. You turned up early and are here waiting. So I hope you don't mind us sitting here wittering and warming ourselves up.
Kate's leaving for Orkney from the States in a few hours. Have a fantastic
Oh my God!
trip.
Okay, keep your eye on the clock then, because we could go on. I don't want you to miss your flight. Lynn in Banbury, just down the road. Yeah, I know Banbury so well. I went to school in Banbury, Lynn.
Banbury Cross.
Banbury, Bloxham. Used to hang out in the White Lion. Used to get banned from the White Lion for being underage and stuff like that.
Excellent.
Yes.
You got banned from the White... Okay.
I think it was the White Lion, yeah.
I never got banned from
the Red Lion. Well, I think everybody did, because we were
thrown out at one or two.
We were all underage.
But those were in the days when they actually turned a blind eye to you going in underage, didn't they?
Sometimes. The White Lion was a bit central, so sometimes the police would not turn a blind eye. It was too easy for them. I still have a bit of a cough, Lynn. Thank you for asking. Today is actually the first time it seems to be leaving and letting me be almost normal. Carrie, Rupert has not had his internet upgrade yet. We could do a whole program about your.
Do you know what happened, Carrie?
We
really could. I'll tell you what happened, Carrie. Yesterday I had yet another appointment. That's roughly the 13th since last October. They came yesterday and said exactly the same as they have said before, that it needed a different team with different equipment. And I won't tell you exactly what I said, but suffice to say that I told the chap that he was now about the 8th person that I had said exactly the same thing to, and they had taken photographs and sent them back to the office and blah, 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 blah. I said, in my position, what would you do? And the chap said, how's your internet? And I said, and he said, well, in that case, just leave the order in place. He said, it'll probably take a very long time, but one day they will send out the right crew. That was the best they could offer me. So no, I'm still running this off a 4G hotspot. I'm hoping it holds together. It seems all right at the moment. We'll see how it goes. But thank you for asking.
And we promise not to talk about politics. Wow. That's it. There's no turning back now. Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to see you all here. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're overexcited. I am. Can't speak for Rupert. He seems to be having hysteria already. Because this is the first time. This is the first time doing this long-planned prehistory show live. So, as I was saying before, I think I can promise you one thing. Things will go wrong. It's live. It's fine. I hope you will find it in your hearts to forgive. What do you think, Rupert?
Yes, absolutely. Live. Well, it's always a challenge, isn't it? And we'll see what happens. I'll tell you right up front that Michael and I made an agreement probably yesterday that we wouldn't interrupt each other, because sometimes, we just giggle when we see a comment that's gone up or something, and we've said that we won't let it distract us from what we're actually talking about at the moment. We'll come to it in between. So before we kick off, I will just say that Jorman said, "Did you get that music from a phone on hold?"
Okay, is that the one you're going to? Yeah,
I'm just going to let that hang now. Yeah.
All right. Okay, and you're going to calm yourself now. Center it. Tell us, what have we got in store?
I'm very warm.
So the Prehistory Show, Rupert.
Treats for tonight.
A magazine show. So there's lots to stuff in. It's not about any one thing. It's very much like our old podcast format with a few modifications. We've got, what have we got? Oldest mine in America. Earliest known cat burial. So good. News from the Antikythera shipwreck. A mystery around Iron Age frog bones. Oh, we know how to pick and choose, don't we? This is good stuff. And a Bronze Age fortress found in Ireland. All that and more coming up. So, first of all, story about the cough. Before we get on, huge thanks, massive thanks to our Patreon followers. Without whom none of this would be possible. I see you, many of you, in the chat here. Actually, indeed, we saw many of you the night before last, didn't we? Yes, there we are.
We did.
There's a lot of us having a jolly time at the end of our Patreon chat. That's it. Wave, bub, wave. Yes, see what a nice, wonderful, lovely bunch of people they are. That's our Patreon.
And that was only one screen.
Yes. That was only one screen, yeah. They're really enthusiastic bunch, and keep us on our toes and ask us really great questions, and I don't know, give us a really good raison d'être to keep this thing coming. The other good news over the last so thank you to those of you who make a contribution to us via Patreon. The other big shout out actually is to those of you who have made a contribution to us via our Buy Me a Coffee campaign, because you'll find the links to these things in the description below. But our Buy Me a Coffee campaign is whatever comes in from that, we put aside and ring fence for putting into production. Because those of you who don't know, our other strand is making films. And the really great news is, after such a long time caused by lockdown and all those kinds of things, that over the last few days we have been, last week we were out and about actual filming. And I have for you a little taster. We're going to make a film about the long barrows of the Cotswolds, and I'll run that. Just shows,
indeed, we are making.
Yeah, we just got out there, and these are just a few of the clips from the rushes from the last few days, all made possible by funds from the Buy Me a Coffee campaign. So there's a bit of work to do yet, even though this is looking good. There'll be a long time before the full movie gets complete. So yeah, this is just a way of acknowledging folks who've made a contribution via the Buy Me a Coffee campaign, and showing you know, that work is getting done, and we're really thrilled about that.
Best place to put all the Long Barrow building and usage into perspective.
Well, isn't that true? West Kennet. And that's it. Anything more to say before we trip off into the unknown?
No, I don't think so. I'll just echo those thanks, and I have to say, you know, we're very happy with the way that's going, actually. And even though I say so myself, I think it's some of the best work we've ever done. So let's hope you agree when it actually comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes. Do we want to catch up on any comments before we kick off? I'll just say hello to Mark, who was a friend of mine. Mark is Mystery Man in Q. Hello, Mark.
Yeah.
Sibylla, hello. So it's great to see you all. So many of you from all over the place. Brilliant.
And I can tell you.
Yes.
She won't be joining us for a few moments, but Jennifer's just joined us in the green room. Jennifer Wexler, folks, curator of the World of Stonehenge exhibition from the British Museum, will be joining us in a little while. So I can tell she's very excited about that. But you'll have to wait.
So are we.
Yes, indeed. Okay, I don't think there's anything needs addressing in the... I forget if we miss stuff in the comments. You know what it's like.
Yes, forgive us. We're seeing stuff coming up, and
we'll
do our best. Hello, Anthony.
We'll
nice to
do
have
our
you
best and move on to, well, the first section of the evening, which is some... as of days of old in the podcast, pushing back the boundaries. We used to kick off with a pushing back the boundaries.
We always did try to find the earliest known something that had just been discovered, wherever in the world in archaeology, and this is actually from Wyoming. From a site called the Powers 2 site, named after the chap who discovered the site, Wayne Powers. He discovered the site in 1986, and it's a huge Paleolithic site. They've been digging up artifacts there. Yes, this is one of the chaps from a couple of years ago in the most recent excavations. They've been pulling up artifacts for quite a long time, but this new discovery of this red ochre mine, it's a hematite mine, despite the fact that they've been digging there for 40 odd years, that this has only come up because the land, 10 years ago, the land went into new ownership, and the new owner was very happy for people to be excavating. And so a lot has happened very recently. And they have found a 13,000-year-old hematite mine, so red ochre. It's an interesting thing, that, isn't it? That, that you find red ochre as a thing pretty much all over the world, where humans have been using it for, apart from art, painting on rock faces, body paint, we presume. Obviously, you never find flesh to back that up, but certainly, bones in burials, sometimes they're coated in red ochre. It's something that has been going on in humanity for a very, very long time. So there you go. I can't dwell on it because it's a relatively new discovery and there's still loads of work being done. That's something that we're going to say repeatedly with news items, actually. But there you go. 13,000 years old. The world's earliest known hematite mine. That's one of the Clovis points. That,
well, I think that's it. I was just about to say, I think one of
the
significance, beyond the ochre of the site is the fact that it was in use for such a long time. And aside from the discovery of the ochre, it's a massive, massive site as far as finds from several different cultures over, millennia. Are we talking? We don't know which.
Many thousands of years.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this is a massive thing. I suppose the other thing is that. Making suppositions about how people used hematite. Is it possible to do so? The medicinal qualities, are there? And also the obvious painting thing, rock art particularly, I suppose, is the one thing that springs to mind.
I think rock art's the big one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything else, I mean, you do read some papers that suggest that they used it for insect repellent. I think, well, how would you know that?
No, that
maybe. But the thing, what we do know is that humans were using it for rock art. And we know from loads of excavations where the bones placed in a tomb, so obviously there has been excarnation because they've placed red ochre on the bones. So, it was clearly a very important part of their ritual lives, if you like. If that's the right word to use for corpses.
And of course, the interesting thing is it's a global phenomenon, the use of hematite feeds into something a little topic we're going to talk about a little bit later, convergent evolution.
Yes, and I'm going to just pick up on a comment here.
Which one?
Because Tom says Clovis points are straight at the bottom sides. I see no flute.
There you go.
There you go. So all I can tell you, Tom, is that point that we just showed has been reported as being one of the Clovis points that has been found on the site. There you go. They've found many. Now you may well be right. I'm not going to argue with you because it's outside my remit.
And mine.
But I think the point to take away is that they have found artifacts over millennia there. So if that's not a Clovis point and it's an error in reporting, then I'll throw my apologies into the mix, but just say there are plenty of Clovis points at the site. So, but thank you for that.
And just to make the point about it being a huge site, I mean, that must be a tiny part of what's been coming up from that site.
It's a snippet
in some
in that
repositories.
shot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. There's been a conversation or words going about Anthony not being too well.
Really?
Don't know what with. So it sounds like you're on the mend. I'm so glad to see you here, Mythical Island.
Yeah, we can't have you ill, Anthony. We're seeing you in a couple of months. Stop
it. Tis true, indeed. Okay, so he said, that is the end of... That's it, as far as pushing back the boundaries is concerned. Although, prehistory news, you like that well-known oxymoron.
It is an oxymoron.
But here's the thing, Rupert. Why isn't this, he said, waiting for it to...
Another pushing back the boundaries?
Why isn't the earliest cat burial, which is... there we go. Took its time to come up. Why is not the earliest cat... Why didn't the earliest cat burial make its way into pushing back the boundaries? Because it is, actually. It seriously is.
Well, It is very much. Why didn't I choose this over the other one? Because
We could have had
the
both.
mine was 13,000 years old. We could have done, but the mine was 13,000 years old, and this one is. Take it away, Michael.
Well, it's 7,500 BC.
That's old.
Yeah, hold on, let me get that right. God, it's going so slowly. On Cyprus, in the Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, right in the middle of your screen there. So this is what we're talking about here when my machine decides to catch up. What you're looking at there on the top of the screen, let me get my bit of paper. That is a man lying on his side. As I said, it's 7,500 BC. And down below him in that little outlined square there seems to be his cat. Or is it the other way round? There is a cat buried there, and his human is not far away.
Cats do own humans, is true.
Yeah, there's a that sort of brings it home a bit more clearly. Obviously, a deliberate arrangement. We're told that obviously this is an artist's interpretation, but we're told that the burial was reasonably high status, given the flints and other artifacts that were found around it. Now, it was thought that the earliest domestication of cats was in Egypt, 2000 BC, that recent. So this really does push it back, Rupert. Forgive me.
It pushes it back enormously, and
yeah.
I find some of this strange. I mean, there's no disputing the fact that this burial is very deliberate. I find the arrangement quite strange. That when you see people buried with beloved items, whether that's other animals or other people, they're always buried in very, very close proximity, like whether they're, in embrace or what have you. And this cat seems to be placed a fair way away to me. It seems
that doesn't strike me. Well, except that they are both within the perimeters of a bounding
that is true.
Little bank, so they're within the same burial essentially.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Yes. Well, I agree with you, but what it made me wonder, seeing them in this arrangement, was I wondered whether the cat was a different kind of ritual relevance rather than his pet cat. Maybe it was a familiar to accompany him to the underworld, or whatever. I don't know.
Well, yes. Send in your interpretations on a postcard. It's. But the cat is definitely deliberately facing. They are deliberately facing one another. There's an implied relationship of some sort or another. Now, to be fair, this is not a domesticated cat. This guy is. Probably more related to a wild cat. His legs would be a bit longer than your regular moggy as we would understand it. But the point is, they found this, and they'd already been really quite well primed to be looking for this, because they had found earlier evidence of cats of this sort on Cyprus, dated from actually a bit later. But because Cyprus didn't have naturally indigenous cats, they must have been brought over from the mainland, by quite deliberately. So that's the kind of takeaway there. That over there in the Eastern Mediterranean, you've got absolutely, it seems, unequivocal evidence that human beings were having deliberate were had a relationship with these cats. What sort of a relationship? It's probably these things are probably dictated by the cats rather than by humans, don't you think? So maybe it wasn't that far removed.
Have commented already, yes.
Oh right, I missed. Okay, I think though that's all I can say about that really. Without
it is a fascinating one. No, it was Mitty Harty. I hope I've said that right.
Sorry.
Said burial. Anyone with a cat knows they'll lie down on whatever you're trying to look at. Yeah.
So tantalising thoughts, and a real spark for the imagination. As ever, there's a novel to be written there, I guess. Over to you, Mr. Man, Mr. Rupert.
But no, fascinating. I mean, as you say, from a serious point of view, it has pushed it back a very, very long way. So, moving on. Okay,
hold on a second. Wait a minute.
What
does Pavla say? Cat bit the man. The man dies. The relatives find the cat, kill the cat, and bit. The end. Like it.
You're not helping.
Carry on, Mr. Soskin. That's your cue.
Yes, this is the wonderful the site that just keeps on giving, Antikythera. So many of you will know the Antikythera shipwreck because of the Antikythera mechanism. This what is called the earliest analog computer. This
pinpointed there on my handy graphic, just in case anybody was wondering.
Well done. And it's a fascinating story, the whole thing around this. The ship sank in around 60 BC. There you go. That's a picture of the mechanism itself, which, they have managed to piece together. They've retro-engineered it so they know how it functioned, and it is basically a model of the solar system where you can predict eclipses and the movements of the planets and what have you. It's an extraordinary thing, and the ship sank in 60 BC with a lot of artifacts on it. It's known that it was a cargo ship because of the enormous amount of or variety of things that were on board. There were statues, there were bronze statues, marble statues. There was a whole load of stuff that was clearly being taken for trade. And so it sank in around 60 BC. It was discovered by chance in 1900 by some sponge divers. And the funny thing about that is when you say discovered by chance, the sponge divers were on their way to Tunisia. Excuse me. But there was a massive storm, and they actually pulled into to the island, Antikythera, just to wait for the storm to pass. While they were there, they decided that rather than waste time, they'd just have a dive and see if they could find any sponges where they were. And they found the shipwreck. Now, when they found the shipwreck, there were all sorts of things that they pulled off it, one of which was a headless statue. And it's... excuse me. Sorry, we're both hacking tonight. That's not good.
Yeah, no.
Thank you. That's the most relevant quote about the most recent excavations, because it went very quiet after the main sort of flurry of excavations in the early 20th century. Then Jacques Cousteau dived on it in the 70s, and they found a load more artifacts then. Yeah.
Okay.
But after that, pretty much nothing until 2012, when they launched a project called Return to Antikythera. And since then, they've been finding all manner of stuff. And you can see from this quote from one of the archaeologists, the 2022 field research included the relocation of selected sizable natural boulders. Basically, just the movement of the ocean over all these years has been moving rocks around, and loads of big boulders had covered up other parts of the broken shipwreck. So they started moving the boulders, and they found all manner of stuff. One of the most exciting things for them was they've actually found the head of Hercules that belongs to the statue that was found in 1900, that's been in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens since 1900, and they found the head. Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
We have to explain. We have both. Yeah, yes. We both caught something a couple of weeks ago, and it's still the tail end. So forgive us. We'll soldier on. Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I caught it probably at Stansted Airport. It's not COVID. We tested, and we haven't got COVID. Yeah. We've had COVID, but we haven't got COVID this time. And I took it to Michael's house. I put a plague upon his house, but we're getting over it. We're all right. I'm sorry, I digress. So what they're doing at the moment, I don't. Do you have the picture of the head, Michael?
Well, I have it in. Here's it still underwater, which is very difficult to kind of discern. And in the next picture, though, it's a bit easier to see.
You can imagine their excitement, though. Obviously covered in all manner of barnacles and Lord knows what. It will be fantastic if they can clean that up enough.
It's quite hard to see
it to the rest of the body.
Yeah, his little measuring stick is across the top of the forehead. If you imagine that, then you can see what looked like barnacles is actually hair, sculpted hair at the top, and then
and you can make out one eye socket there, and
an ear.
That's a lot of curly and an ear and a lot of curly beard.
Yeah.
The thing is that you could say that with. It's another funny thing actually about the original discovery is that when the divers went down, there it is. Let's hope they can put their head back on. Yeah. That when the divers went down, they saw all these limbs and torsos that they thought were dead bodies, and they were marble and bronze statues. Yes, the big takeaway I think from this is that whilst it's exciting and in the news that they've found this head, the significant thing is that having discovered that these boulders with heavy tides and what have you over however many centuries have actually rolled over other parts of the shipwreck, then heaven knows what may yet be discovered now that they're actually moving those rocks. Wouldn't it be amazing if they found something else as sophisticated as the Antikythera mechanism itself? That would just be bonkers.
No need to apologise, Steve-O. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us. He's apologising for being late. No, it's easy for us sitting here to talk about people digging up stuff from the bottom of the sea. But the reality of doing sub-aqua archaeology is just mind-bending. It's quite a, how can I put it, a muscular activity. And the very fit need apply. Doing this kind of stuff, I can't imagine what it's like. I think there's a good film on YouTube, that illustrates the extraordinary lengths they have to go to in choppy seas, and it's a fascinating job, and I'm a tough job, and somebody's got to do it, and I hope they love doing it, because actually, the next saying the difficulties that archaeologists go to, to serve us up these narratives, or to serve us up the bones, so that we can make these narratives, or just have our imaginations tickled, segues nicely into the next news item. You won't think so at first. Mystery frog bones at an Iron Age roundhouse. Now, I didn't find this. Rupert, you found all these, mate. Thank you so much.
I did.
Mystery frogs. Let me say more. We're talking about just north of Cambridge, so not so far away from Must Farm and where's the other place? And Flag Fen, just a bit further north. So I hope that helps orientate a bit. But what we're talking about here is an Iron Age roundhouse, and you stop giggling. I shall be cross with you. There's a excavation of a 14-meter stretch of a ditch outside an Iron Age roundhouse, from which 700 kilograms of animal bones have been retrieved. And a high concentration of amphibian bones, frog and toad, representing at least 350 individual animals, which it's quite extraordinary in itself, because it poses a problem. Whether it was in antiquity or if it happened yesterday in my back garden, in my pond, how would these poor animals get to be all die in this same place at the same time? So we're talking about 400 BC to AD, so in the great scheme of things, not that long ago as far as prehistory is concerned. But there's nothing to be definitively said about this. That's the fascinating thing. It's unlikely that Iron Age inhabitants would have consumed them to support their diet, so then they're not being chucked in the midden, because there's an absence of cuts or burns on the bones to suggest they were being eaten in that way. Although, if they had been boiled, that might it could have been a prehistoric frog tragedy.
That's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought about boiling. Yeah.
The boiling the frogs. Yes, we know a story about that.
I actually suspect that the frog tragedy is probably closer to the truth. But
when they move in large numbers, and if they all befell the same fate at the same time. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were about to say something.
I mean, there's various scenarios that
winter hardships,
but
apparently they could, a cold snap would finish the little fellas off. Maybe. I'm going to skip to this. You see, it all ends up with this. This is the Dr. Vicky Ewins, senior archaeologist at the Museum of London Archaeology. This is puzzling and an unexpected find which we're still trying to fully understand. This accumulation of frog remains may have been caused by a number of different factors, possibly interacting over a long period of time. So we just aren't sure yet what these were. Now, that's so honest. It could have been anything.
We liked Vicky Ewins.
Yes, because it could have been anything and we don't know. Now, had this been human remains, there'd have been all sorts of stories. It would have been fighting to, because it would have been so important to establish a narrative for how many these humans got dead in the same place. But frogs, no, we can be honest about frogs.
Yes.
Am I a bad man?
I'm going to contact Vicky. I'm going to contact Vicky Ewins because
well, apparently that's her.
I think yes. See, anybody that that keeps things real and says we haven't got a clue is right up there in my book.
Yeah. And here's the other thing about this because as I segued on from the last piece, it's the people that do the hard work. Imagine extracting, because that's only a fraction of the bones that would have been extracted. And we're talking about a long pit here in the mud. Who were the people that sorted through that mud, picking out those bones with a little scalpel type
am I
thing
right that it was
and a brush?
8,000 bones?
Yeah, it's something like that, representing 350 animals. This is the tough job of archaeology. And again, hats off to people that do this stuff, so that we get these narratives, or not, as the case may be. There we are. That's my piece said.
Yeah.
Who would
well
have
done.
thought?
Yeah, in fact, so following up on that, this is the coughing and spluttering show. Jenny says, would someone mind catching me up as to where the find was? It's in Cambridgeshire, Jenny.
Just north of Cambridge itself, I think. In a place called Bar Hill, was it? Yes, that's correct. Okay, are you ready to leap forward to your piece?
Indeed. He said, coughing anew. Yes, Bronze Age fortress discovered in Ireland. Now, this is an exciting one for all sorts of reasons. It's a discovery made by a local field archaeologist, actually from Galway, Michael Gibbons. And there you are. That's the location of this fortress, and it's so Bronze Age. It's been dated to around 1000 BC.
I've got an aerial view of it,
and
that's the kind of context from a
Now, the thing about that photograph, what's so good about that photograph, is that you can see the lakes around it. They're called thurlows. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. Anthony can correct me if I'm wrong. But the thing about thurlows is that they are seasonal lakes, so they're not there the whole time. So this fortress has been built clearly taking that into account if you look at its position in relation to the wet areas. So you can see the walls there. You can just make out some of the walls. Size-wise, it's 110 meters east-west by 400 meters north-south. To give that a sort of visual perspective, I had to look at average sizes, and it's roughly 4 football pitches long by 2 football pitches wide, if that gives you a visual sense. And it's estimated that it would have quite comfortably supported around 200 people, which is, that's a good size settlement. That's about the number of people who live in my village. So it's good. And I can't really tell you any more than that, because it really is a brand new discovery, and there's loads of work to be done. There's Michael, top man finding that out.
Yeah, we should get in contact with Michael, because we're going to be
it's a new discovery.
You should be in contact with Michael, because we're going to be passing through his neck of the woods in September.
In fact,
you're making a note now, are you?
To my notes to self. I am, because if I don't do it now, I will forget.
Oh dear! Welcome to the bridge. Welcome.
Doing it. There you go. The thing is, I've got witnesses.
Men at work. Men at work.
There you go. That's done.
Oh, interesting.
But
Anthony, sorry, what? Rupert. Anthony says he's quite controversial. Oh, here we go. Oh dear, we could go down a rabbit hole here. Michael, Anthony says that Michael Gibbons is the same archaeologist who says the roof box of Newgrange is a 50-year-old construction and not an original feature. Ouch.
Well,
we shall investigate further. Let's have a word, Anthony. Let's have a word. See what works.
Because, as you know, Michael and I are not frightened of rocking the boat, and we do like to keep things real. I think that's a curious suggestion. Did he really say that? Well, all right, we'll have a chat, Anthony. Thank you very much.
Anthony, wow, stunned silence, yes. Do you know what? I think it's time to move swiftly along. Yes?
Move swiftly along. Move swiftly along. I was going to say, before you do that thing, that obviously it is a new discovery, excavations yet to take place. We shall report back when there is news.
Yes, indeed. Moving on. It is time to bring our special guest on. I'm so glad to report that that Jennifer is still waiting in the green room, hanging on in there. Hope you've enjoyed the chat, Jennifer. Just so people who don't know who we're talking about Dr. Jennifer Wexler, who was the project curator, is the project curator of the World of Stonehenge exhibition that's been going on at the British Museum for the last few months. Rupert and I have been privileged enough to go to the exhibition. I've been twice, actually. And the last time we visited, it was in the company of Jennifer herself. Such a privilege. And we're very grateful for your invitation to go around the exhibition with you and have some of the details pointed out to us. So without further ado, I shall... oh, he's going to press the wrong button. Let's bring Jennifer on. There we go. Hello, Jennifer. How are you? Nice to see you.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us. Yay.
Thanks for having me.
That's quite all right. Apologies for...
Well, it's our pleasure. We should have canned applause, really, shouldn't we?
Well, I can do that. No sooner said. No sooner said.
It's lovely to see you, Jennifer. How is everything?
Good. It's been busy. We're coming up to sort of our last, really, I guess, week and a bit to the end of the exhibition. So we're busy trying to get everyone in and sort of all the last visits and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I should say my colleague, Neil Wilkin, who is the lead curator on the exhibition, he was really gutted to not be able to join us tonight. So hopefully you'll get a chance to speak with him sometime soon as well.
For sure.
We'll make a point of it, yes.
Yeah. Are the numbers still up of people coming along to the exhibition, Jennifer?
They are, and it has been. The last couple of days have been very busy, as you would imagine, as you get closer to closing. So, fingers crossed, people will get everyone in. And we're doing a few late nights, opening till 10 on sort of the last weekend.
Wow!
And I think this coming Saturday as well. So hopefully that'll let lots of people be able to get in and see the exhibition.
Yeah. Listen, congratulations, because I think the exhibition does an extraordinary job and something more. If you can possibly get along to the exhibition in these last week or so, then do. Because I think Jennifer and Neil and Duncan, of course, have done a stonking job pulling this together. I mean, it's so easy to, when you see things nice and settled and still in a nice, safe environment, you can't imagine the work that's gone on, in front of that actually happening, pulling so many strands together to get all these wonderful artifacts together in the same place at the same time. So congratulations for, excellent and job well done. One of the finest exhibitions I think that you can visit. So
well, thank you. I think you're probably a little bit biased.
Yes, maybe
the content.
not without good reason.
Yeah. So what was your path to being in that position of being the curator of this exhibition at the British Museum?
So I should say it's been a sort of a long process. This isn't something that was done overnight. The exhibition has been almost 10 years in development.
There you go.
So even some of the initial ideas behind it were inspired by, for example, the new visitor center, which is now not so new at Stonehenge, almost 10 years old, and that idea of presenting new ideas in prehistory. And I think obviously the really iconic exhibition on this period is Symbols of Power, which was put on at National Museum of Scotland almost 40 years ago now, crazily.
Wow.
And it's still the sort of, the point of reference for displaying this material. So it's something that we really wanted to kind of look back on. And the thing is, and this is, funnily, one of the complaints we've gotten is, oh, it's not really about Stonehenge. and that's a fair complaint, because obviously it is about Stonehenge, but it is the world of Stonehenge, and we're using it, the monument, because it is that famous thing, and as the gateway into this world of prehistory going back over 5,000, 6,000 years ago, because it is the famous thing that people know. But what we want to do is really show the richness of that world, and this is where we're building on the ideas of symbols of power, in the sense of, as you've just demonstrated by your amazing news, it's hard to come up after, Iron Age frogs, Antikythera mechanism, and Bronze Age fortresses in Ireland, by the way. But, obviously there's been so much amazing dynamic research over the last 30, 40 years, and even the last couple years, that our picture of prehistory has changed massively. So to be able to kind of show that in person, in a presentation has been a massive honor. And it's really been built on sort of 10 years of sort of research projects connected to British Museum collections, but also, a huge amount of conversations with colleagues and other institutions across the UK and Europe. So in a sense, it's been a huge collaborative effort.
Massive. We can't underestimate that.
It was staggering, actually, to see. I think, speaking for Michael as well, probably, that there were so many artifacts in the exhibition that were things that you've always wanted to see, but they'd been in different museums around the world. And the fact that you managed to pull them all together, like the Nebra Sky Disc, for example, like the frontlet from Star Car, like the piece of the Sweet Track, it's just, there was just so much stunning workmanship. I think for me, it's one of the things that eternally I find so evocative, is when you're looking at so many hours or days or months of people's lives involved in creation of things or use of things. And you look at the Sweet Track, for example, that little stretch of the Sweet Track, and you think, how many feet over how many years ran backwards and forwards across those pieces of wood. I find the whole thing really quite moving.
Here's a long shot. It's a question from Dale, who says, years ago I visited the King Tut exhibition on tour in America. Any chance of a version of the world of Stonehenge being shared with the world on tour?
Oh gosh.
You don't need to answer that.
We would love to. Unfortunately, I can't answer that because of, as you've pointed out, the complications of getting all these objects together and the loans. We've had over 35 lenders from across Britain, Ireland, and Europe for this. So it's really spectacular, that we were able to get these all together. But because of that, it makes it quite difficult to travel. the exhibition in its current form. Whether something could be developed later on, we'll see. We do have what we're calling a small spotlight loan, which focuses on the Shropshire Sun Pendant, which is our final object in the exhibition. It's that glorious small gold pendant. And with that, a series of other objects to help contextualize it. And that's going to some regional British museums. So, for example, it's going down to Cornwall and Plymouth and a few other places. So it'll be sort of a taster of the exhibition, but not the full whack. And I should say, actually, there is another Stonehenge exhibition going on in the States right now in Denver. So perhaps Dale can, get out to there as a complimentary exhibition to ours. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as you were saying, Rupert, we really wanted to surprise people with the sophistication of a lot of the objects and to get them all on display. And we were really lucky that our exhibition partner was HALA, the Central Museum for Prehistory, which is obviously one of the best museums for prehistory in the world. And really, they've gone through a massive renovation recently. And, some of their displays were really sort of, inspired us as well in our displays and the way you can show prehistory. So it was great to kind of get them on board early on and collaborate on a lot of the objects and a lot of our loans, which made it possible to get a lot of really great things.
So, Jennifer, I mean, the exhibition has been on for several months now. Are there any aspects of your own understanding, any aspects of your own perspective on this period of time that has changed for you through the act of bringing these things together, and indeed the act of having people see? It's funny when you put something together, it's only when you see other people reacting to something sometimes that you get a different perspective yourself. Can you speak to that at all?
No, I think that's the case. And also sometimes you get a lot of interesting perspectives, obviously, from archaeologists coming in and responding, but then also people who aren't archaeologists and bring in their own unique viewpoints. And I think for me, it's put a lot of puzzle pieces in place. And I personally feel like I have such a deeper understanding about these sites, but also so many more questions. And, things like actually my sort of thinking about some of the things that have come through doing the exhibition. I almost, want to go back to previous research I did, like my PhD research, and re-look at some of the sites I looked at then and think about them in questions. But some of the things that I think, because you ask, you get asked a lot of questions from members of the public about people's worldviews in prehistory, and obviously we don't completely have those answers. But one of the things that I've found really fascinating, and I think partially because I was lucky enough to get up to Orkney in January, though it was during a windstorm, so I do not recommend you going to Orkney.
Oh, not January? What were you thinking?
It was for a press trip, and we nearly did not make it there or back. But anyways, it was still, despite all that, it was really stunning. And obviously I know you've been up there, so you know what it's like. And I hope I can go again and spend more time. But sort of really that connection between this sort of rise of kind of stone circles and domestic space, and kind of how that is so kind of connected to the worldview, and even things like, if you go back far enough, tomb styles and things like that. I think that's really stunning. And, and people often ask why circles, and you think, well, yeah, that's a good question. And I know you're going to talk about that a little bit more later on. But, that kind of, that intersection between how space is marked over time and how different generations bring their meanings and their ideas is pretty stunning. And that's one thing that I think I've really taken on board, and I think has also been surprising for people, is that, these sites they're not one site. There's not one history to them. They're multiple histories. They change and evolve, and everyone kind of brings their own meaning. And in a sense, the quote we have at the end of the exhibition from Jaquetta Hawkes, the famous quote about Stonehenge, is still correct, even if she wrote that, in the 60s. she was completely right. She got it, you know, and I think we see that with even some of the modern takes on ways places like Stonehenge are being used.
Am I quoting it right? Every age gets the Stonehenge it deserves. Is that about right? Yes, yeah. That one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, for me also personally, I've really become quite obsessed with some of these stone objects and the intricateness of them, and almost that sense that
talking of which, you know, we have a few photographs. So I was going to ask you, you know, your favorites. We were just about to, you know, embark. I mean, which we were going to talk about first there, because what we've got a few here. Oh my goodness gracious me!
I mean, I should also ask you, what was your favorites?
Oh, do you know what? A wall of stone axes. It's extraordinary. I was thrilled, like Rupert, to see the star-carved frontlet. Almost the first thing, you know. Just it was such a beautiful surprise. The Falkton drums, seeing them in their, being able to see them in a context where you can actually discern what size they are, you know, and being quite tiny. And things like the mace head there, which you think, well, that must got to be a size, but it's tiny, 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 tiny. It's the scale. I'm
calling those toffee hammers.
Yes,
yeah.
I have been referring to them all as toffee hammers, and actually, you show that one, and everybody talks about the Knouth mace head, but for me, the one that is most extraordinary is the one with the really graceful eye sort of shaped, lozenge shaped carvings that are so perfect. They're so exact. It's good grief. How on earth did they manage to do that in stone when we're talking about a period before metal tools? So that was all stone of whatever type on stone of whatever type. And oh, good grief, it's just extraordinary. I think there's the rustling of paper as Mike frantically tries to find it. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning.
It's quite extraordinary. Quite extraordinary.
That is no more than that size.
Yeah, about that size. It's extraordinary. And I'll tell you another one, actually. I don't mean to be stealing your spot here, but you talked about it. In fact, well, the thing is that, Jennifer, you said this to us when we were with you. You mentioned the amber cup.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, I don't know if you can show.
Is that what we're talking about?
Now, yeah. Now, the crazy thing about this cup is, I don't know. In fact, Sibylla's here. I don't know if she's ever worked with amber, but to number one, finding a piece of amber that size, for crying out loud, it's huge. But the workmanship, doing that, to take the walls to such such a thinness isn't the right word, I'm sure, but achieving that without it breaking. I was looking at that thing, but how on earth did they achieve that? We think we're clever today, but you look at 5,000-year-old craftsmanship, 4,000 or 5,000-year-old craftsmanship, and you think, how did you pull that together?
I don't doubt for a moment that there were quite a lot of tears and swearing involved in the getting to. Yeah,
and that was probably the 10th one. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I mean,
astonishing.
I agree with you. I think that's the craftsmanship, and that's what we really wanted to surprise people with, because we did, did before when we were in the process of first developing the exhibition, we did visitor evaluation, and we asked people, you know, what they thought of when we talked about Stonehenge or this period of time. And, you know, you got the stereotypical things like cavemen, druids, you know, all those stereotypical things. And then so obviously these are because this is the stuff that's presented in the media. Obviously, a lot of people are much more knowledgeable nowadays because there's a lot more TV shows. But so we really wanted to kind of show the sophistication of these objects and really surprise people. And I mean, those mace heads, I agree with you. Those are extraordinary. And I don't know the last time those have all been in a room together, and they're all the same type. And, you know, the interesting thing about it is they're such hard material that, so some of them are on loan from National Museum of Scotland, and the curator there, Hugo Weimark Anderson, who you know, is a specialist on these type of objects. And he was saying to even carve the initial shape was actually the hardest part. And the fine detail is easier to make, but they're so hard that they were never deposited sort of in a situation where they would stay complete. So they're either destroyed or deposited in a tomb, or broken in half, or, you know, deposited in sort of someplace in the landscape. So taken out of commission, essentially, which obviously is something we see with a lot of archaeological objects. And that one of them, they tried to break it. It's so difficult and so fine, and you can see it on the side. It's sort of a bit chipped. To work that material and make such fine decoration is really extraordinary. And I think also if you go back to the axe wall, which Neil and I spent a lot of time sweating over. I spent a lot of time with those axes.
I bet you did, yeah.
And you know, but you see the beauty of them, and you know, and you think like almost these people were geologists. They had such deep knowledge of their world and the materials of the world and how to use those materials in a way that is so much more sophisticated than we have.
There are just 4. How many axes were on that wall altogether? You probably
about 90, just over 90.
90.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, so and you know, we could have in an ideal world we would have loved to have 200, you know, to really show them off. But you know, with the 90, we're kind of trying to be a little bit conceptual and show sort of one axe for every generation of people involved in this massive transformation that happens with farming, which is about 90 generations or 1,500 years. But to get them out, you know, these are things that normally are in storage, and yes, they're studied, and you know, they're part of our study collection. But to get them out, you know, on the wall as the objects of beauty they are was a real challenge for us, and it was great to do it. And you just showed the jadeite axes, which are my absolute favorite. And I think they're many archaeologists' favorites because they're just so stunning. And that's not even, that picture does not do them justice.
No,
but
I know. It's the sheen and the depth of that sheen on them that is just astonishing. Listen, it would be so easy to go through every single thing. I just want to touch on these though. The Falkton drum and the other one. Sorry, I've forgotten the name. The
Burton Agnes drum, which is a relatively new discovery, and just the first time it's been on display to the public. So it's been amazing to have it. Yeah,
even that pic makes them look a bit bigger than they actually are.
They're not huge. They're quite solid. They're quite heavy objects.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very interesting point. Never thought of that. Their weight, because they look quite lightweight. You know.
No, they're quite sort of chunky.
Oh, interesting.
And obviously the context of them is really pretty extraordinary because it's at a time when we don't have a lot of burials, but we're getting these, these inhumations with children with these extraordinary chalk sculptures. And the Burton Agnes one it's really reframed our understanding of the Falkton drums, because the Falkton drums obviously was dug up by Greenwell in the 19th century. It's been in our collection for quite a long time. So now that we have this new discovery with this context of 3 children buried together, which is pretty poignant, it allows us to redate. And the dates we're getting are about 500 years earlier than we expected for those types of objects. And also the decoration on that Burton Agnes drum is just like mind-blowing. And, it has all the artistic motifs from everywhere in Britain, basically at that time on one object.
Yeah. We can't, unfortunately, go through every single item of the exhibit. Maybe at a future date we can do a deeper dive on some of these things, and that is definitely the plan, folks. That in the not too distant future we will get Jennifer and Neil together and do a much deeper dive on their experience of putting the exhibition together, and some of the artifacts in particular, just to celebrate the whole thing. So, Jennifer, what's next? What's next when all this gets put away, tidied into, sent off via UPS to,
perhaps. Beyond sort of some drinks, perhaps, and some resting.
Yeah.
We're hoping. So we actually do have a project that is kind of continuing to look at what we're calling icons from the time of Stonehenge, and that's sort of something that Neil and Duncan are working on. So they'll continue to kind of look at the way we display and understand prehistory. And so, hopefully this will certainly feed into our future research. And there's still a lot of objects in the exhibition that we want to go back and do a little bit more research on. So hopefully we'll get to do some publications and get out some of the ideas around the development of the exhibition.
Brilliant. It's been fascinating talking to you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It really has.
I hope you folk out there, enjoyed Jennifer being with us and getting the inside track, at least part of it, on what it took to put the
and do watch
together.
this space, because we will be doing, as Michael said, we will be doing a proper full length interview with Jennifer and Neil. So yes. You can send questions in for that too, Patreon folks.
Okay. So with that, it is time to say ta-da for now. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take good care. Bye.
Excellent. Thank you
Fantastic.
so much. David asked, did we manage to film anything while we were there? No, we didn't, David. It's a sadness, really, because I wish that we'd got our acts together, but it wasn't to be, and done something a bit.
You say that,
work
but there's also the thing of, what it's like when people go to a concert and they hold their phones up to record it, and it's like, well, now you're looking at something through a teeny little window and you're not actually enjoying the experience anymore. And for me, going to that exhibition and just enjoying it for what it was and immersing myself in each of those pieces, rather than filming it and worrying about whether we were doing the right thing with film.
Yeah. It's such a distraction, filming, isn't it? Even photographing stuff, it just takes you away from what
So actually immersing ourselves in the exhibition for its own sake was a joy, frankly.
Yeah. And probably in the end, we managed to give you better value because, we can convey a personal experience. We should move on. Time is flying. We've been on air for over an hour and we've still got a bit to go. Shall we move on to the next topic?
Do that thing.
Okay. And it's time.
Love this.
We have a general talking point. Actually inspired by Helena McGinty, one of our viewers, and just has given us an idea of something to whiffle about for a little while at least. Let us show you what Helena said. There we go. How did this message come in, Rupert? Do you remember? Was it a comment or was it a direct message to us?
I am ashamed to say I don't remember. We've had so many
apologies
messages
if you're there. Nevertheless, it's a
I might be able to tell you.
Don't worry about it now.
No, it's yet again, carry on and I'll have a look.
Helena says, reading about the Nebra sky disk and recently about Stonehenge, I have read the stupid idea that ancient farmers needed these things to tell them when to plant their crops. As any gardener or horticulturist or even a housewife hanging out the washing knows, you just need to pop outside, look at the sky, gauge when those clouds will arrive, etc., etc. I live in northwest England, and planting was always at least 2 weeks later than further south. Further delayed if there was any heavy rain in March or frosts in May, etc., etc. No bloody stone circle required. Plus, anyone who can't tell it's spring just by looking shouldn't be a farmer. Any chance you can do a segment or short video on this? Talk to a few gnarled old countrymen and women. Well, no, we haven't done that, but this is the next best thing.
Yes.
So, do farmers need stone circles? Discuss.
Well, Helena, you can take it straight away that we agree with you 100%. And in actual fact, we mentioned your comment to Jennifer earlier on. We were just chatting earlier on today. And one of the points that Jennifer made very eloquently that we hadn't quite projected to that point. But she said, yeah, but that's just a silly thing to say anyway, because farming had been in place for, we've got stone circles that cropped up 1,000 years after farming was in place. So to say that people were putting stone circles up as an aid to their annual timekeeping is clearly bonkers on so many levels. For me, it's one of those strange theories that I think sometimes what happens in archaeology, I shall quote our good friend Bruce Bradley, American archaeologist.
Oh, yes.
Lovely man. Bruce Bradley said to us, it's amazing how many people write papers about prehistoric hunting, and they've never been out and so much as shot a rabbit. And I think that kind of sums it up, that something that happens a lot in archaeology is that people who have very cerebral occupations, and I don't mean that in any rude sense at all, but they come up with these ideas based on just preconceptions of their own, and they have never spent time in horticulture or farming or whatever. So I think it's the wrong people sometimes who come up with these theories. It is a curious thing, I mean, as Helena said, that even an idiot can step outside and know when the weather is turning and maybe the soil is soft enough to plant something now. You really don't need any kind of calendar to assist you on that.
It's not even a weather thing. It's a seasonal thing. You don't need something to tell you when the seasons are changing and all the rest of it. It's a misnomer. And the thought that anybody would need to go to the extreme amounts of effort needed to create a stone circle.
I will say, though, to take it to a slightly different angle, though, that Helena specifically mentioned the Nebra sky disk. And the thing about the Nebra sky disk is that it does mark out those. Well, there's one gold strip on the side left. There would originally have been two. And those arcs on east and west, if you like, of the disk do show you the sunrise and sunset positions throughout the year. Now, sunrise and sunset positions take you to solstices and equinoxes, which is of very different relevance in prehistory. It's nothing to do with that, with seasonal planting.
Well, as Candide says in the comments in the chat, Candide says precision for cultural festivals.
Bang on, Candide. And I think that's far more relevant than any farming aspect. It's when you think, for example, when you think of the amount of Neolithic sites, megalithic sites that are constructed to align with solstices, whether it's a winter solstice or a summer solstice, sunrise or sunset, that this was clearly a major thing, and there's every reason for having something that assists you in that. I mean, even now, I still go out with a sunrise compass in my pocket. Why wouldn't you?
But look at it. Look at it this. Look at it this way. If you've got a culture, if you've got an integrated culture that depends upon trade, and seriously, they really did. You need to be able to get people together at the same time. The whole mechanism by which you trade, you get people with similar interests in the same place at the same time. It is that timekeeping element of it. So anybody, wherever they are in the country, has a synchronized means of gathering together in the same place at the same time. If your economy probably depends upon it. Think of it that way. Stop it giggling.
Sorry.
I see you.
Sorry.
Your economy probably depends upon it. If you look at it from that perspective, it kind of makes absolute sense that you're going to spend a lot of time making sure that everybody agrees what time of year it is, and what exact time people should be gathering together in the same place. I think I've made my point. I don't need to hammer it home anymore. And I think, you have made your point. Be honest, that we should move on.
We should, although I will just pick up on a comment. There have been a few that I've been giggling at. Thank you, David. But Nigel said sunrise and sunset positions where on the planet it will be different in different latitudes. Absolutely, it will. But you know, you can have a device that relates to. It was made for this geezer. It's you're right, and they probably had many different. That's clearly what it is.
Okay, I think let us trottle on, and thank you so much, Helena, for sparking that little flurry. So we've got a few questions, and a few questions that have come up. Now would be a good time, Rupert, we have, as many of you know, we have a regular Q&A session live like this every month, and the next one will be next Thursday.
It is next Thursday, yes.
Which, by my calculation, would be the 14th. Is that correct?
Just let me take my paper diary.
It's definitely the 14th, because 7 plus 7 is 14. Yes.
Is it the 7th today? Excellent.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So what we do, we invite questions, for us to answer live, and that works pretty well. We've got a lot of questions in that basket, though, haven't we, for next Thursday? So we'd be fools to invite even more, wouldn't we, at this point?
Yes, we will shamelessly, though, when it gets to be too many, we will just cherry pick. We can't answer all of them, so we'll do our best.
In the meantime, there are a couple that have come up by whatever means that have caught our eye, and we thought we might spend a bit of time dancing around. Something. I'm not sure how this question came in. I think it was a comment on a video on YouTube.
Yes, I believe it was.
Yeah. I'm really interested in convergent evolution and wondered what your thoughts were on a similar thing happening with cultures.
I love this question.
Can you encompass it, in a sort of brief
Yeah, basically, if any of you who don't know, convergent evolution, so evolution in the natural world, how things look to be the same, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that they were related when they're not. It's just that things have evolved to... form follows function, or function follows form. So, for example, a shark is a fish, a dolphin is a mammal. They've come from completely different strands of evolution, yet they look extremely similar. You can look at the wings of a bat and the wings of an insect. Say, the point is that evolution has brought these completely different strands because the function works, this model works, and it just arises more than once in evolution because it's a solution to a problem, put it that way. And so to what Saminka is asking here is what our thoughts are on things happening in human culture. And, so we were talking, one of the news items at the beginning, pushing back the boundaries, was the red ochre mine in Wyoming. Well, humans all over the planet, way back in the Paleolithic, humans have been using red ochre for painting, and and we presume bodily adornment because the evidence suggests that, even if there's no evidence for it directly. But in burials and what have you, red ochre has been a very important thing in human evolution, and it's happened all over the planet, clearly arising in unrelated cultures. So, that is a good example there. People debate whether you take something like a dolmen, for example, raising a massive stone on top of other massive stones. People debate whether this is a shared culture across the planet or whether that has arisen independently. And it's a very good question. There's very good reasons for seeing it in both directions. I'm not even sure. I don't know if Michael and I agree on this. I think it's more related to shared culture. You think it's independent, don't you?
Yeah, I do think it. I tend towards thinking it's independent because it's a kind of emergent quality. Once the idea of having a raised stone, there's only so many ways of doing it. The idea of having a raised stone over something, if you've got the raw materials available in the first place, all it takes is that one idea. And bingo, it's dolmens because, forward, although I know there are four-legged dolmens, but, any more than that, it's overkill, too much work. 2 stones doesn't work. So it's got to be 3 or 4 or something supporting whatever is up there. So it's too, it's the form of a dolmen is an emergent quality of wanting to do a certain thing, a very simple thing. Yeah. So I would tend to.
I see the argument. I go the other way that that if it was an emergent quality as so many others, and for example the fact that you have the use of red ochre globally, then why are there no dolmens in the Americas? It's an anomaly for me. If you anyway, we don't need to pursue that. The whole thing about convergent evolution in cultures. Can we think of any number of others? I think
boomerangs.
Boomerangs is an interesting
Hi Beyond says
one,
like Egyptian boomerangs. I didn't particularly know there are Egyptian boomerangs, but the earliest.
There's loads.
But the earliest boomerangs, we did a thing about it, didn't we? Way back.
Yeah, Poland.
Poland. Yeah. Polish boomerangs. Who knew? Yeah. They were dated way back.
Yeah, I mean, the Egyptian boomerangs, I mean, there were loads in King Tut's tomb. There were loads of boomerangs in there, as far as I recall. But yeah, there's been boomerangs found in Siberia, obviously Australia. Ironically, the Australian ones are later. As we just said, earliest known boomerang is from Poland. So yeah, that's a good example. Thank you very much. What else?
So I don't think we've got time to really serve this question or this topic really, really well. That's the problem. It's quite a deep one, and maybe it's something we could do something a bit more fulsome about in a separate program some other time.
We could do. I think there's a simple thing that you can say, though, and that is that that many cultural shared aspects come from problem solving. and problem solving. I mean, that can be as simple as making a pot to hold water. So if there is a solution needed for something practical, then there tends to be a fairly common way of doing it. So yes, Salmenka, we do think there's a convergent cultural evolution, if that answers your question.
I presume that's Mark at Somerton. Various forms of archery and bow and arrow evolved all over the world. Yeah,
that's a good point, Mark. Yeah.
Very good one, yeah. Okay, I'm going to take us on to the next sort of question that came our way. From Vincent Randalls. What of the representations of axe heads carved, on some stones at Stonehenge and possibly other places? Could this be the Neolithic Eat at Joe's billboard for "I've got this many for sale"? Well, it could be. What tickled your imagination about this question, Rupert?
It's actually, and I don't, Vincent, forgive me for this. It's because I think it's almost a red herring, because we've got absolutely no evidence at all that those axe heads were carved on the stones at Stonehenge while Stonehenge was in use. We have no idea. They could have been carved 1,000 years after Stonehenge had fallen into disuse. I think that
my take on it is that they were definitely carved after the original construction and by a different people than those that constructed it, because the shapes of those axe heads are of bronze axe heads.
They are
saying that Stonehenge was built towards the end of the Neolithic before the beaker arrived. Then it won't be of the original builders, because those axe heads don't represent stone axe heads; they represent bronze axe heads in their ubiquity.
It's an interesting thing from a different angle, though, in that. I don't think if people had been using it as any form of advertising, then I think that they would have had large wooden signs that were probably painted with whatever pigments. I don't think they would have spent ages nibbling away at a stone.
You have to forgive me as well, Vincent, because I think it's one of those questions that it's good to have fun with, but unless you can think of a way that could be devised through which you could actually answer it in reality, then it's going to be forever. It's going to bifurcate into so many people's imaginations, so many ways. Yeah.
What evidence would you need to find to prove your hypothesis one way or the other? Interesting one.
I've moved us along. I've moved us along because, as I say, time is flying. So this means that we're working our way towards the end of the program, and I have to say thank you so much for sticking with us. I hope you're enjoying the show, and you like the format and us getting through these things. We have to learn to get a bit faster. I think this is a bit, a little bit long, but we will live and learn. It was always going to be this way. What is the topic? You've got to laugh. We've got to laugh.
The topic here, I'll tell you.
What's making us laugh this time around?
Well, now, what happened originally with our podcast, excuse me, was that we would always try to find something funny in archaeology, in whatever way funny, to end the show. And what happened recently when we were trying to come up with something funny was we realized quite how many rude comments we were getting on YouTube. Admittedly, an enormous minority. We get mostly lovely comments from you wonderful people, but some people are just rude, and they made us laugh, so we thought we'd share them with you. What have you got there?
Backyard bear. You lose all credibility clinging to the idea they were hunter-gatherers. This is in respect of our interview with Lee Clare from Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah. This site proves beyond all else that your theories are wrong, and until you address and admit your failure, you will never be taken as credible again. Ouch.
Thank you, Backyard Bear.
Yeah.
That did make us laugh, partly because of his capital letters, but also because, and actually, whilst that made us laugh, it's a good place to bring up a very serious point. And that is where he was taking issue with the fact that we are talking about hunter-gatherers doing all sorts of stuff. And he's making the enormous presumption that hunter-gatherer means primitive. No, it doesn't. Just means not conventional farming. These aren't people who are going out and ploughing fields. They're people who are going out and gathering fruits and whatevers and killing an odd aurochs or a whatever, to bring them back to feed their settlements of however many hundreds of people. You don't need farming to sustain a sophisticated culture. And it's a mistake that a lot of people make. They think hunter-gatherer means primitive. It doesn't at all. But clearly, in his eyes, we have failed and we will never be taken seriously again.
Yes.
Yes.
I shrink in my chair with the shame of it. There's more along the sort of same lines here, actually. This is addressed to Dr. Lee Clare himself. Actually, this isn't a funny one. This is serious, actually, isn't it? I don't know what it's doing here.
It's serious until it goes blindingly stupid.
Stupid. Dr. Clare, you contextualize Göbekli Tepe as religious and as the first temple. Actually, did he actually watch the interview? Because he doesn't.
He doesn't say
I'm
that,
mystified. No. He doesn't say that at all. In fact, quite the opposite. Yeah, we could tumble off into the weeds here, but as nearly all published research and commentary, without exception, since its discovery, Klaus Schmidt explicitly stated this frequently, while implying that it was obvious and that this didn't require further discussion. However, in thoroughly reviewing the literature, I've found no reference to evidence for this. Given that we now know there is no evidence and that the concept of religion existed anywhere in the world, or any concept closely similar, prior to its very modern invention in the 13th century by Christian high scholastics.
I did reply to his comment and told him to go and do some reading, but
that was the wrong button.
Was it? It was very appropriate.
No, crickets maybe.
Yeah, I found that extraordinary that anybody would take issue with us and say that religion first appeared in the 13th century.
Yeah.
It's perplexing, really. Anyway, yeah, go on, move on. That made me laugh.
Okay.
Oh, David, yeah. Clearly, that's not me.
Well, I don't know. Just one moment. I think I have something somewhere. Have I forgotten where it is? I mean, there is proof.
This was also in relation to the interview with Lee about Göbekli Tepe.
That's right, it is. So, I mean, look, here we go. Folks, you be the judge.
I'm sorry, mate. It is you.
5 minutes of Baldy was too much for me. What a boring lout.
Oh, dear.
Really? Is that... maybe that's... Is that a toupee that Lee's wearing? Maybe he knows something we don't.
One of you is a lout.
Definition of lout, please. I can't remember being loutish on my own program. Can you? And finally, I don't know what that's doing there.
No, I don't know what that's doing there.
Marco
Molinero.
These guys kind of frustrate me. Too much waffle.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, mate, too much waffle. And on that note, we better stop waffling.
And on that note, it is time for us to cease the waffling. Hope you found that amusing, folks. Thanks for hanging on in there. Do hit the like button. Do hit the subscribe button. All those things. Have a look at...
come over and have a look at our Patreon page. If you like what we do and want to get involved, then we're a growing happy band. And
we'll try not to waffle too much in future. And he's looking for the way out now. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Time to say bye-bye. Wave bye-bye to the nice ladies and gentlemen.
Take good care, folks, and we'll maybe see you on the Q&A next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye.